Jerry Thornton, a new neighbor of mine, and we want to welcome you to America's hometown, Plymouth, Massachusetts, and Plymouth Rock TV, which is the staple global network of this area here. But how are you? Thanks for coming in.
Great. It only took me 2 years to finally make it to the top. I'm a South Shore guy.
Yep.
And Plymouth, the only reason the Irish Rose and I moved here, because we said our standard is it's got to feel like we're on vacation. Because we liked where we are. We liked our house. We had been there a long time. And we said, okay, we're going to move from the woods to the beach if it's perfect, if it's ideal for us. And so far, it's checked every box. And you know that you're in the high rent district when, not to brag about this, but just on the ride here, I saw someone that literally had, and no one outside of Massachusetts will understand the significance of this, but if you know, you know, 2-digit license plate. Not 3, which I would have been impressed with, 2. I won't say which 2 because that person has a right to privacy, but it was in the teens. So I'm like, this is someone who probably traced themselves like right off the Mayflower. Like you had to have gotten off the landing boat, built a registry of motor vehicles, and then started printing out plates in order to get one in the teens. So
let's hope that the pilgrims didn't come over and just make the registry, because that would have been a really sad story of the beginning of our time here in the United States if we can avoid going to the registry.
Sure, but you know what? If you are that well connected, that's a status symbol that no one else can understand. Like people from other states, like I said, just don't get it.
Yeah.
Right? It's like if you know, no explanation is necessary. If you don't know, no explanation will suffice. You know?
And I was talking with my kids about, like, we saw a rotary phone at a flea market, and I asked them what they thought it was. They had no idea. They couldn't even explain what it was. And I even saw a YouTube video of somebody telling a kid to like make a call on that phone, and they stood there and looked at it like it was insane. But you remember before there were area codes, and luckily I'm not that old where it was like you'd call the operator and say, connect me to Jerry Thornton, and okay, here we go. But I mean, there was a time where it was just, my phone number was 888-6188. That was it. And the 8s, because South Plymouth was just all 8s, the holes on the phone with the 8 were all dirty and filthy because we were always hitting those.
But see, the great thing about the 8s, like my best friend growing up, his last 4 were 7080. So you kept your finger in the hole. So you got that sort of like, you got to circumnavigate the globe like Magellan. You know, I get where it's hard for your kids to grab the concept of that, although, I don't know, I think they would have seen it in a movie or something. You ever notice like every movie, especially Christmas movies for some reason, the kids are always off by themselves watching an old black and white movie on TV, which none of them do. If you're not, you have to be in your 50s to really get nostalgic enough to say, hey, I think I'll watch like Casablanca or something like that. So kids don't. So how they just could never have seen that be operated is beyond me. But what they'll never understand is when the phone rang, it was exciting. Right? It would be like a call to adventure. Like, hey, the phone rang. Stop what we're doing. Yeah. Oh, no, I'm going to get it. No, I'm going to get it. You would yell and race to the thing. Now tell me every time your phone rings, you don't go like this. Oh, what is this? You know, like that cliche of your job, like this meeting should have been an email. Like this call should have been a text. Right. If it wasn't for you on the phone right now, I'd be continuing to do what I'm going to do, which is crazy, by the way, because you should talk to people, have like human discussions.
Do you know your kids' phone numbers? Like, because you just said it. I could tell you phone numbers of my friends growing up, 100%. And I don't know my daughter's phone number. Same. I just have her name in there.
Same. If you ever lost your phone and you had some emergency, what would you do? You asked to borrow somebody else's. You would just, I don't know how. I've had to include it in some application I was doing recently, like my son's phone, and I just, okay, this is completely unfamiliar to me. And I can remember like old phone numbers by visualizing how they were written on a piece of paper that my mom had in her cursive. But there's no other mnemonic device in my head to memorize.
Even
those.
cursive. We could go down all the roads of things that are just not going to exist anymore.
Sure.
Cursive will be one of them, and a typewriter. It's just insane.
Oh, I wrote a thing on Barstool today about where I referenced newspapers and paused, and then in parentheses said, "Kids, ask Siri to explain what a newspaper is." You know, and I still see people all the time who make these references that I'll have to go, you realize no one under the age of 30 understands what you just said, including that. Like, I sound like a broken record.
Yeah.
Okay, no one has known what a broken record sounds like since probably the 80s. Like, when
that's
everyone
true
comes
as well.
to-
You sound like a broken record, and like kids must be like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, there's this thing that you see.
No wonder why
it's like-
nobody listens to me, because I use all those expressions, and they go, "That guy is legitimately dementia riddled."
Oh yeah, or if you make like a pop culture reference
Yeah.
that just has not lasted to this day. Like, I mean, I don't know why this one's popping into my head, but if you mention, say, like something happened on the Brady Bunch, no idea.
Right.
Klinger on MASH. Go to anyone under the age of even 50
Right.
and say, what did Klinger do on MASH? They're not going to realize it was Jamie Farr and he wore a dress. It's out of the zeitgeist.
I don't know if
but-
we can talk about that now. I mean, can you?
It's so that's I mean, and I think it came up recently as something that's totally dated that just
Yeah.
wouldn't like ever fly today.
Yeah.
But it was like this beloved show, and it was so progressive, and it was it was
It's
so
one of the best shows on television, MASH. right?
yeah,
You know?
it just would never get made today for
Yeah.
sure. So there's kind of a perennial article that comes out most like late August, early September, and it's college professors discussing what the worldview is of the incoming freshman class. Like, for instance, I remember seeing this 20 years ago, that none of those kids had ever had a phone with a cord on it. You know, the last stage of the
Yeah.
cords was the one that was like 100 feet, that it could extend all the way, like, you know, to
And I remember
another
getting
end
one
the
of
house.
those, like the freedom of that I could go into the bathroom, close the door, the cord was stuck through the door, but oh man, that was freedom.
Yeah.
I wasn't standing next to the phone in the kitchen with my parents watching me, whoever I was talking to. And there was a day too where if you were calling a girl up or something and her parents answered.
But unfortunately, I think that's gotten so easy for them that because they got to bypass all those things that we had to do. It built character. I think character is becoming more and more like an important theme
For sure.
for me. It built character to stand there in your house knowing that, like, your brother could come walking in or your mom's gonna whatever, and you had to stare at the phone and work up the courage to dial a number, not knowing if you were gonna get like a little brother would answer.
Right.
It's like, yeah, hi, can I talk to Ann, please? Who's this? It's Jerry. There's a boy on the phone, and now you can hear the commotion, and you had to do it, and you didn't know if it would go terribly,
Yeah.
but the only way to get to where you wanted to go was to fight through that jungle, that ecosystem where everything there can kill you, sting you, bite you, stab you, or whatever, and get to that point that you needed to, as opposed to now it's like you get a girl's number and you text her and you make some arrangement or whatever. I
Jerry,
don't envy them, because you've got to go with the theme
Yeah.
of pop culture right now. You've got to defy gravity.
Yeah.
Like you can't just be an astronaut floating around in space. You need that tension. You need that to build that character is like building muscle. You need something to resist against, and when you can just go path of least resistance your whole life, ultimately you just end up being kind of like a squish.
I got to tell you, you're going to be good at the podcast, because we just had 18 different subjects that I was like, oh my God, that is so brilliant. Just the phones and how we communicate, and like you and I suppose, are roughly, I don't know, I'm not going to, is it impolite to ask a gentleman his age?
I've published it. I'm
Okay.
north of 60.
Oh, what? Gee, well, good for you. You look good. You look fantastic.
I'm trying, buddy.
Yeah,
Thank
it's all
you.
that
Appreciate
South
it.
Shore air you're huffing in. Well, you've had that your whole life, I guess, right? You were-
Yeah, but I'm trying to hit the gym. I had a thing especially during COVID, where I just said I'm going to work on three things: mind, body, and spirit. I'm going to
Yeah.
try to educate myself better. I'm going to try to stay in shape, and I'm going to try to connect with my faith more than I had previously or whatever. And, you know, every day is another challenge, and so there are some days I don't go to the gym or I don't take care of myself, and instead of like getting my mind better, I just watch like garbage TV or whatever and tune my brain out. But I'm trying. But yeah, so you were saying we're about the same age. I got years on you, obviously.
Thank you for saying obviously, because I feel like pushing that boundary into old agedom. I'm a grandfather. So do you have grandkids?
No.
Okay, so there you go. I'm in the wisdom of that group of people.
You guys breed well in captivity. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think I'm ready for it. I have some friends that have grandkids. Yeah. I mean, not.
It is better. It's better than kids.
Yeah.
For sure.
Here's the thing. A lot of younger people might not relate to either, but I've got this idea that you get married first, then you start a family. You know, it's just exactly. I know it's sort of a loony idea. I don't judge, but I just think it tends to work out better in the long run. So, you know, I got a son who's probably engaged to be engaged, that kind of thing. Another one who's out looking. And when I see friends that have grandkids and I see how excited they are about it, I go, that's kind of cool. Like, all right, you know what? No one wants to feel that old, probably.
Well, first of all, you don't want to be told you're going to be a grandparent when you're not expecting it, in the sense of like, if they're not married or something like that. You don't, you know, not that doesn't happen, of course, and you'll love whoever shows up, but, you know, you want the easiest life possible for your kid. Let me switch it back a little bit, because I want, for people who don't know who you are, what do you say is your elevator speech of like, nice to meet you, Jerry, you meet somebody in Aruba, the hotel, and they say, what do you do? Are you, because you do a lot, you wear many hats, like me, so, and I find career day at my kids' school to be a challenge, because you do so much, but what would you say of the comedy, the writing, the media stuff, the sports knowledge I have? What would you say would be on your name tag?
Well, I start by saying I'm with Barstool Sports. I've been with them from quite literally the beginning. You know, a year ago we had our 20th anniversary. I joined shortly thereafter. I was the third writer that Dave Portnoy ever hired, and I say hired loosely because there was no money in it. Like, I sent him an email. You're looking for writers I'd like to write. Send me a sample. He got right back to me and said, you're in. Doesn't pay anything. But I mentioned Barstool Sports as the real elevator pitch because it's such an identifiable brand. It's such become a thing that's not just like a site that you go to, podcast that you watch. It's really become like a lifestyle brand, kind of, to the point where I'll watch, you know, like a news program, and they'll refer to, you know, the Barstool Sports conservatives, who are a certain type of conservative, not completely conservative, they're socially liberal, you know, whatever. Which is amazing to me. Like, the fact that has happened is beyond anything I could have comprehended when I started.
Yeah, the cultural impact of it was huge, as far as it being one of the first, and I think there's always probably more that you could cite as examples, one of the first challenging entities to the mainstream media. You know, something outside of what we are just fed all the time. It's like, whoa, there's something different here. And for sports, it was like looking at it from the perspective of a bar stool, of course. Like, you know, you're at a bar, the conversations are different than they are when you're watching Bob Lobel at night, you know, with the post-game, you know, whatever the show that you're
reading the columnists in the Globe or whatever. Yeah, it's, and this is another big theme with me and a lot of things I do, is it's about authenticity. Yeah. Like, when I'll stick with the Patriots because that's been my major focus since the beginning, but you know, when the Patriots lose or when they're bad like they are right now, like, it kills me. It bothers me a lot. If I'm just some columnist from the Globe, the Herald, whatever, I'm just looking for the story. I don't care who wins or loses. And, you know, not long after so being with Barstool for so many years got me some radio spots. And not knowing this, but in like 2013 through 14, WEEI was The Bachelor. And I got the final rose. They were looking for a third host for their 2 to 6 drive time show. And they asked me if I would accept. And it meant leaving a job I had with the state. It was like a good job that was going to have a pension and benefits and vacation time and whatever. And the aforementioned Irish Rose, to her undying credit, said, go, do it. I go, but wait, I got this job. I can't get fired from it. I could go there tomorrow, and a week from now, we're not doing sports radio anymore. We're country and western 98.5, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And like, I could be out of job. And she said, it doesn't matter. This is what you should be doing. You should be talking about sports and having fun and whatever. And so it was during that time, one of the other writers who covers the Patriots for a living for one of the bigger outlets said to me, I envy you. I go, really? Why is that? He says, because this is fun for you. Like, you enjoy this. To me, it's just a job. I don't care who wins or loses. I just want something I can discuss. And I went home and I talked to friends and I said, if that's ever me, then I've had a good run. Just giving me a Viking funeral.
Yeah.
Because I don't want any part of it. If it's just like, and then in the third quarter they did this. No, I want it to be, okay, this is why my heart is breaking. This is why I'm over the moon excited and I can't wait to lord it over everybody else because we're the best team in the land and everybody can stick it, you know. And so that's what Barstool is. And if people don't recognize the name, I understand. It kind of depends. It's sort of an age demo there. Mostly my age demo was like, sometimes you just get the, Barstool, what's that? You know, they give you that look like the dog when he doesn't know what hand you put the bologna in. Like, what? I just say it's sports, but it's humor, it's pop culture, and it's just, again, being authentic, you know, where we ruffle a lot of feathers, to use the cliche. You know, it's R-rated. Sometimes it's pretty fratty, you know, frat house kind of humor. But we employ some of the most successful women in business. We've got different voices, and we just try for the most part to stay out of like politics or anything that's too seriously. But sometimes you have to weigh in on stuff that's right up in everybody's face.
Sports is just thrusting itself into the political spectrum anyway. When you have hosts from ESPN commenting constantly on it, then it becomes part of the sport itself, whether or not they're wearing something on the court to send a message to somebody. I mean, there's all these, you know, these things, and I've admired the Barstool brand for so long, and I have this video of me, and this was sort of a fulcrum or a teeter-totter of things in my life, as I was at hired to cover Milton's store opening in Chestnut Hill. Okay. Right, and there was a big party, and it was everybody there. Glenn Ordway, you know, Pete Shepard, you know, the whole EEI crew, right? Dale Arnold or something at the time, but Dave Portnoy was there. But they literally would not almost let him in the building. And I'm like in a Milton suit. I'm talking to Dave, and he's bullshit. He's going on and on about Glenn and whatever, and I was just encouraging him. And I was saying, you know, you got to keep doing what you're doing, blah, 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 blah. And I look at that video and I go, I lost my company within a year of that. And then his goes through the roof. I'm like, geez, if that advice, I should have kept it myself. And it was like you could almost see the world shifting at that point. I think it goes to the greater lesson of how hard work pays off, and perseverance, and being genuine who you are, and never veering from that or trying not to. Right. And, you know, he kept with it. And it became, I think that's what was endearing to people. It wasn't fake. It was who he was and who the people around him. And of course that's going to resonate with people, and that's what we all are. Right. We're out and about with our buddies and our friends, and you have a cookout and your buddies come over. That's how you're talking, and that's kind of like what we want to hear, right? Right.
And another huge part of that too is how much pushback there's been. How, as Barstool started to succeed, how much people tried to cancel us, to get sponsors to abandon us, to shut down these parties that.
That's when you know you're doing it right.
Yeah, exactly. And the key to doing it right is to not back down, to not capitulate. If you do something that is actually wrong, that was actually a mistake, sure. You own it, you apologize for it. But when people want you to apologize for something that you didn't do anything wrong, the lesson here is stick to your guns. Stick with what you're doing. And Portnoy has taken all of those slings and arrows and stood his ground. And you know, there's an old expression: every knock a boost. And the more people came at him, the more he stood his ground, the bigger Barstool became. And to the point where, I mean, if some of the media person especially has come at us, and they have.
For sure.
It's a matter of just calling them out and watching. I call it the monkeys come flying out of the witch's castle,
right.
and just descend upon them. And I don't mean with any kind of violence. You got to say that. No one threaten anybody, whatever. It's just identify and shame that person. And I don't know if you must be aware of the dynamic about the champagne bottles that he has. He has these massive champagne bottles with the names of people that tried to shut us down, try to stop us. I mean, just one example, the head of programming for ESPN, and his name is not important, but we got a show. Pardon my take, got a show on ESPN. Mm-hmm. They put it on at like 2:00 in the morning, but these guys were going to get like a half an hour show to just do their stuff, and they're the biggest sports podcast in the world, and it would have been great. It got shut down after 1 week, just due to pressure. Because Barstool's evil, and why are you getting into business with them? So they get canned, and a short time later, he's shamed and disgraced himself for like his own personal foibles, and he becomes a champagne bottle. Glenn Ordway and I have a relationship. I think he helped get me on EEI. He had an internet radio show that I used to do because it was convenient for me to stop by. It wasn't far from where I worked or whatever. So I have no issues with him. But Dave did, and no one ever asked me to like intervene or whatever, intermediate. Well, when he lost his job, that was champagne bottles and stuff. And so, he's just, Dave has left so many career skeletons in his wake, not just by sticking to his guns and not capitulating to the mob and not getting bought out and whatever, and staying true to what we are. So, the
media has been so, let's face it, I guess maybe across all kinds of careers, is that people work now to avoid getting fired as opposed to working to climb the ladder or be innovative and be different. And you got to take risks. You got to try, like, and it's a stand-up comic. If you're gonna try a joke out, you're gonna swing and miss. And a lot of times you got to swing and miss quite a few times until you get that rhythm. And so we understand, like, hey, you know what? In the free flow universe of podcasting and media, you're going to say things that you didn't quite mean, or you thought would be funny, and you didn't quite analyze it through a focus group. You say things, and then this whole apology culture is just like, okay, I get it. You say, I didn't mean it. It wasn't how I intended it to be. But that's what the ESPNs of the world and all these major media outlets, people are just so afraid. They're so scared. And then somebody like Portnoy comes along, and Barstool, who just says what they feel, and they're flabbergasted by that. They can't even, like, how are you not? I'm pressing this cancel button over and over and over again. Why aren't you disappearing?
Right, yeah. And I think that has really been, how the culture in general is trending towards. I like to think that it's when everything is trying to stay really safe and really homogenous, and there's an orthodoxy, and you have to say these things in this particular way in order to like fit in with the crowd, it just becomes bland and people lose interest. And there are other voices out there, and Barstool was one. Certainly the podcast space has become that as well, because again, to keep saying authentic, you can be fake for only so much time.
Right.
You can't be fake for a 3-hour conversation. You can be fake as hell in an interview where you know what the questions are ahead of time, and you've got your canned answers and whatever, and you're going to go to a debate, and you're going to make these points and whatever. But for 3 hours of sitting there having a free-form discussion, the person you are is going to come out of that.
Of course.
And, I mean, I don't know how many blogs I've written, but, it's got to be in the 6 figures, because I've been doing it for 20 years. And, I try to be careful with my words, but I think eventually you read through them and you pretty much understand where I'm coming from on things. What I think is funny, what I think is ridiculous, the stuff I'd rather just like avoid talking about if at all possible, and that kind of thing. And I think Barstool has, if we haven't ridden that wave, I think we've been the crest of that wave for a long time. You know, and just the way we positioned ourselves against the Boston media, because again, we started out, it was just Boston. It was just 4 local guys.
Yeah.
And a free newspaper that you'd get out of the boxes off the sidewalk, or they'd have it in a stack of the window.
Is that how it was?
Newsletter. We did 2.
Like the Boston Phoenix, like that kind of.
Yeah, but we did 2 issues a month. Each one of us would write 1,000 words. And as Dave said, like, I don't even read them. I know when you guys are good, but like you could put a paragraph in the middle. It just says Barstool sucks, Barstool sucks, Barstool sucks. I would know. I would publish it exactly how you put it, typos and all.
Yeah.
And we slowly gained this audience, and I remember getting to the point where I was surprised if anyone had heard of us, and then it became common, and then I became surprised if anyone hadn't heard from us. And we morphed into this daily blog, like, okay, let's respond in real time to the things that are going on. And it was hard for some of the guys, just for their work schedules. I just really learned to goof off at work. You know, I became like a multi-slacker.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm going to be taking a few minutes because I have to go talk about this signing that the Bruins just made, or whatever. Right. And then it became like we learned who our audience are. They'd organize these parties. I say they because I would just show up. And the different bars in the city, and we would have these parties, and you knew that these were the guys who commented under the articles. Oftentimes they made a great point that you missed, or said something funny that you wish you had written, but they were real genuine fans. And then we cracked through this weird kind of barrier where all of a sudden we started getting hate. And I remember people just coming on there and ripping apart what I wrote and saying that I'm a fraud and I don't know what I'm talking about or whatever. And it was really weird at first until I just kind of learned to accept it. Like, okay, that's how you know you're making it. Like you said earlier. Okay, when strangers now are taking the time to say how much they hate you, okay, that's good. Like, so by the time 2014 rolls around and I'm full-time on the radio, I realized that all the co-hosts and the guests or whatever they couldn't read you had a screen in front of you with the text line. Right. You know, listeners in real time could just put in their 2 cents worth. And guys used to not only like read that or turn it off, they'd brag about how many people they've blocked on social media. And I'm like, first of all, I'm reading this because I'm interested in what people have to say.
Right.
2, it's a million times better than what the Barstool comment section was. Like, if I had 3 comments in a row without someone saying that I'm like molesting the kids I coach in football, then I'm like, I'm having a good day.
Yeah,
you know?
right. Yeah.
But the thing about blocking people on social media, I'm currently at 0. Like, I've never once.
Yeah.
Because whatever, I just think they're ones and zeros, and I don't particularly.
I'll block you today.
Care.
That helps.
Yeah, well,
you go feeling good.
You know, it works for me. And 2, I want to know who the crazies are. If someone's going to threaten to kill me because I wrote something negative about the New York Jets, I want to know that person because
exactly
the same reason you put a tracker on a shark. I want to know where they are. So, you know, being in that Barstool sphere, it toughened you up, and it made you able to also not take stuff seriously and just kind of laugh at it and just go, look, when, you know, I'm going to go to bed tonight, I'm going to sleep like a baby no matter what I said or whatever people came back at me for. And I think ultimately the people who are being super negative to you, when they realize the bullets are just bouncing off of you, they just kind of stop, you know. If someone say I'm a weird looking creepy dude who doesn't know what he's talking about or whatever, I retweet that with like I might say like your words are hurtful or whatever, but I'm not going like, oh, somebody out there doesn't like me, you know, because you know I just think we've been through the fire and no one's been able to shut us down, and we'll exist as long as there's an appetite for this, which I think is forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to thank a couple of our sponsors before we'll go into part 2 here. So I want to thank Al Cappuccino. Al Cappuccino is a alcohol-infused coffee in a can that our good friends from Howie's Spiked have created, and they're selling them for tailgates and all sorts of funny. You can get an espresso martini in a can and with coffee in it. People love them.
Alcohol and coffee at one can. Don't threaten me with a good time.
Yes, well, you're Irish, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there you go. I think it was made for you. And setting the space. So we're here at the Kingston Collection, which is formerly the Independence Mall in Kingston, and now it is the Kingston Collection that's setting the space, their outlet. And we have the Plymouth Rock TV studios here, and Jerry Thornton is here, and we'll take a quick break and come back in just a minute.